Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In today's review we're going to be taking a look at the newly released Marvel Legends Avengers Infinity War The Children of Thanos box set. I know that many of you, myself included, have been eagerly awaiting the arrival of more updated movie accurate representations of the Children of Thanos, and finally Hasbro grant us our wish and give it to us in an accumulative box set which I have got to say looks fantastic. The presentation here on this box is some of the best that I've seen from Marvel Legends, and honestly if you are a mint in box collector I think that you're going to love this box art design. You can see that we've got all of the figures here clearly displayed in this huge window view display with all of their accessories besides them. You can see the Avengers Infinity War logo, the Children of Thanos. As we take a look here at the side of the packaging, I will show my best to show this in its entirety as it is absolutely massive, but here on the side we've got Thanos, Proxima Midnight and of course Ebony Moore, and here on the other side of the packaging we do have some really cool images of Thanos, Obsidian and of course Corvus Glaive. As we take a look here at the back of the packaging, once again another amazing piece of artwork of Thanos and of course the Black Order. We also do get a very brief bio. The children of Thanos, powerful and vicious warriors, will stop at nothing to harness the power of the Infinity Stones. I actually began to give up hope that Hasbro were going to give us this type of box set, or at least release these figures with more movie accurate decos, as it has taken so long for them to actually do so, and I've got to say that this is potentially one of the most anticipated sets to come out for Marvel Legends regarding the MCU. I am so looking forward to getting a more updated representation here of Obsidian, as the original Build-A-Figure, whilst was an incredible looking piece, was nowhere near as accurate as what we will get here with this release, and I actually never managed to pick up the original Infinity War Build-A-Figure Thanos, so getting this figure here done in a more movie accurate deco with the battle damaged head sculpt as well as of course the battle damaged arm was certainly once again another highlight for me. And all of these figures are actually quite hard to come by now, so to get them in a re-release box set with better decos, I think that this would make potentially the ideal Christmas gift for any MCU fan or any Marvel collector in general. So without further ado, we'll crack them open and of course compare them to their original versions. And so here we have the Children of Thanos, also known as the Black Order, opened up and out of their packaging, and all of them looking absolutely superb. If there was ever a perfect MCU inspired set produced by Hasbro, it has got to be this one. All of these figures are by far the superior representations when compared to their predecessors, and in the case of Obsidian, he is a complete overhaul on the original Build-A-Figure that we did get released as part of the 2018 Infinity War wave. In this review, I'll be giving you comparisons of all of the Children of Thanos compared to their original counterparts besides Thanos, as mentioned earlier on in the review, I unfortunately do not own the original Build-A-Figure. So without further ado, let's kick things off and take a look at Thanos first. And so to kick things off, here we have Thanos. Now as mentioned earlier on in the review, this does appear to be a direct repaint / reuse of the previously released Infinity War Build-A-Figure. However, handling this figure here for the first time, this has got to be the superior version over the armoured version of Thanos that we got in Endgame. The articulation as well as the overall design, in my opinion, is a lot better. Now from what I can tell, he does only come with one new additional component, that being this completely singed and burnt out interchangeable arm. I do believe that this head sculpt here is just a carryover from once again a previously released Build-A-Figure, of course this time with some additional paint applications applied, and I do believe that we may have seen the snapping gauntlet hand released as part of a previous box set, so I'm not entirely sure as to whether or not this is a new sculpt. But taking a look at the head sculpt of Thanos, an absolute astounding look there. You can see the tremendous sculpt work as well as paint apps that have gone into this figure. I've got to say that the actual suit as well looks really nice, especially the details that we do get here on these collarbone sections. I think that has come out so nicely. You can see that we've got some really nice definition there to the sculpt as well as some fantastic lining detail, and the overall texture there to his costume once again I believe has come out really nicely. I won't be delving into articulation too much in this review, as for those of you who already own these figures you pretty much know what to expect as far as the articulation is concerned. But as we just take a look here down to the boots, you can see that once again the sculpt work as well as the paint work has come out tremendously. Taking a look at the snapping gauntlet hand, you can see that the sculpt work on that is so awesome, and of course this is one of the defining moments in the MCU, so it's great that Hasbro have given us a plastic representation of this into our collections, and I think that it looks absolutely superb. You can see we've got all of the Infinity Stones which have been individually sculpted as well as painted, and I think that the overall paintwork as well as sculpt work on the Infinity Gauntlet is one of the more impressive sculpts that I have seen on a Marvel Legends figure. Now getting down to some of the interchangeable aspects of this figure, of course you can just simply pop off the head here, which is of course the more smiling head sculpt, and replace it with the more solemn head that is of course battle damaged after he does indeed snap his fingers towards the end of Infinity War. And just showing you that, you can see he certainly doesn't look nowhere near as happy and as arrogant as that previous sculpt. And I think that the singed effect that the paint apps give off certainly does create for a very realistic look to what we saw in the movie. This looks so awesome. You can indeed, of course, replace the arm. Now, this is a lot easier to do than I initially suspected. I imagine that it's easier to do as this was previously a builder figure, so the pieces were intended to be popped on in order to actually assemble him. But it's very easy to just simply pop this off here, and then we can bring in this arm, which I'll very quickly just give you an overview of. You can see that this is an entirely new sculpt, and once again it looks absolutely incredible. The paintwork as well as the sculpt work on this piece is amazing. I was completely blown away when looking at it. It really is a feast for the eyes. One thing that is worth noting is that this entire section here is indeed removable. Where it was a fixed piece here on the previous arm, you wouldn't be able to swivel this section here around. This here can indeed be removed, so I'm not entirely sure as to whether or not they're going to reuse this in the future. And just to show you how this does look when you do remove it, you can see that we do have some fantastic sculpt work as well as paintwork actually underneath this section. So I imagine that if we do get just a standard hand without the gauntlet on in the future, we could potentially see that almost civilian look that we got at the beginning of Endgame here for Thanos. But of course, just plop this section here back on, take the gauntlet and snap that in there nice and securely. And once again, the sculpt work looks absolutely terrific on this. And then you just simply want to snap that into place, and there you have battle damaged Thanos. Certainly the look that I'll be displaying on the shelf, as I love the attention to detail that we have got going on for this. And for those of you who are a fan of Avengers Infinity War, this I'm pretty sure is one of the pieces that you are most looking forward to out of this set. This looks absolutely superb. So that just about wraps it up here for Thanos. Let's take a look at Proxima Midnight. And so Proxima Midnight here is basically just a direct repaint of her previously released version. However, she does, from what I can tell, have a brand new face sculpt. Taking a closer look here at the details, you can see that this is a lot more accurate when compared to the previous release that we did indeed get. This looks as if though it has jumped straight off of the screen, and I love the detail as well as the paintwork that we've got going on here for this crest section. You can see that it looks very reflective in terms of its design, and I think that has come out so nicely. The costume is exactly the same as the previous release, and as we take a look here, the hair sculpt too also does appear to be the exact same mold. Her staff weapon has been given a complete overhaul as far as the paint applications are concerned, so once again we do get a much more movie accurate look. And as we just take a look here down to the lower section, once again the colour scheme is a little more muted when compared to the original version in order to better match her appearance from both Infinity War and of course in Endgame, bringing in the original version of Proxima Midnight, a figure that I absolutely loved. There is no comparison here in my opinion. This newer version is just much better looking when compared to this release, especially where the staffs are concerned. You can see that the deco that we do get on this newer version looks absolutely superb. It has of course been this time cast in a darker grey plastic, whereas this one was completely gold. And we also do have some nice electric blue highlights here towards the end of the blade, as well as here towards the tip, which is a really nice attention to detail. In order to compare the face sculpts, you can see in what I was mentioning earlier on in regards to the face, they do appear to have completely remolded this section, and I say that because the eyes are a lot further apart, and the definition there around where her mouth is certainly a lot more defined than what we got on this release. However, the hair sculpts do appear to be the exact same reuse. Another brand new aspect of this figure is that we do indeed get her sword, which once again has been sculpted really nicely and definitely does match its appearance from the movie. I maybe would have liked it if we could have seen some of that blue paint deco that we got on the staff added here for these sections, but nonetheless, overall I think the sculpt looks really nice. And just to demonstrate how she does look whilst wielding that, of course I won't be demonstrating the articulation in this video, but she is one of the more poseable female MCU figures, and I'm sure that you'll be able to get her in a variety of different poses. So Proxima Midnight here is certainly a major improvement over her original version, so definitely another figure worthy of this re-release. Next up, here we have the Moore, also known as Ebony Moore, and out of all of the members of the Black Order for the original releases, this was one of my favourite MCU figures. I just loved the detail as well as the articulation on this figure, and I thought that he was a fantastic scale. You definitely got bang for your buck with this release, and getting it here in a re-release with a new additional component certainly does make this once again one of my favourite members of the Black Order and one of my favourite MCU figures. Taking a look here at the paint deco, for the most part this is very similar to the original release. Obviously the original release was released way after Infinity War and was actually released around the beginning of Endgame, so Hasbro had a little longer to actually work on the sculpt and of course the colour palette when compared to of course Obsidian and of course Proxima Midnight. All they really have done with this version is given him once again a slightly darker, more muted colour scheme, and they have added the hair, which I think is a major improvement, as I know that that was something that many of you had an issue issue with on the original release. Just bringing that here out for a comparison, you can see that the face sculpts do appear to be exactly the same besides where the paint apps are concerned, but as we take a look here at the back, they have added a separate piece in order to better match his appearance from the movie. And just comparing the paint decos, I personally believe that this one here is painted a lot better when compared here to the previous version. You can see that all of the paint apps have come out incredibly crisp and precise. They've added some additional ones here, such as this lighter shade of grey here at the top, and as we take a look here at the hands, you can also see that the paint applications to the rings are certainly a lot more predominant than what we got here with the previous release, which was a lighter shade of grey, and they were not applied as thick as we got here on the original release, but all of the rings on both of them have been painted really nicely. One thing that's worth noting is you can see that here we don't have any paint apps, so I do imagine that that is in order to better match his appearance from the movie, but overall it is basically the same figure just with the additional hair attachment, and I've got to say, what a figure this is. Next up we have Corvus Glaive. Now this figure was actually, I believe, quite difficult to find when it was originally released as part of the Loki and Corvus Glaive 2-pack, so for those of you who missed out on that set, this new Children of Thanos set is probably your best bet of adding this to the collection, and I know that there are many collectors out there that are mainly picking this set up here for the Corvus Glaive. Now basically this is probably one of the more least interesting figures out of this wave, as he has no new retooling and there are literally no difference as far as the molds are concerned. It is merely just a darker, more glossier finish for the body and a much darker colour scheme for the overall suit. You can see that when comparing it here to the original release, which I've got to say I actually do prefer the look of the original release when comparing them side by side. I just think that the colours here for this one are a little too dark and are a little too muted for my taste. I much prefer the look that we did get here for this version. However, the head sculpt I believe has been given a much better paint deco with this newer version. So if there was a way to just swap out the heads and then just keep the hood on this piece, that maybe would be my favourite Frankenstein, but overall they are the exact same. And just comparing the staff weapons, you can see that once again this version has been given a little bit of a lighter shade of gold than compared to this release, and the actual main staff section itself is a lot lighter of a grey. You can see that unfortunately I do have a little bit of a paint mishap there, but overall it is a really nice looking figure, and as mentioned previously, if you did miss out on this version, then this version here is not bad by any means to pick up. But of course, turning to the main event of the set for many of us, myself included, here we have the updated, more movie accurate version of Cole Obsidian, and what a figure he is. Personally, the Cole Obsidian Build-A-Figure is one of my favourite MCU baths of all time, so to get him here re-released in a much more accurate representation certainly does please the eye. Taking a look here at the head sculpt, this does appear to be the exact same sculpt as what we got with the original version. It is once again merely the paint apps that have changed, but we get an entirely new sculpt here for the shoulder pad, which I think looks incredible. Just taking a look there at the paintwork as well as the sculpt, I really think this looks awesome. From what I can tell, the upper torso is indeed a carryover from the previous release. We now just have this additional armor attachment placed over the top, so the upper torso does appear to be the same release as the previous version, but the sculpt work certainly does look absolutely incredible with this extra layer of detail pegged over the top. You can also see that this entire arm here is indeed a direct carryover from the original version, and this arm I believe is slightly modified, as the original version did have a shoulder pad attachment which was actually glued into the sculpt. We no longer have that here with this release, so it does seem as if though once again this is brand new, but the hands are the exact same sculpt. The lower torso region is indeed completely brand new, so this lower torso is a new piece, the skirt armor is of course a new piece, and the legs are completely new. We also do get a much more movie accurate look for what I believe is his axe accessory, or maybe his blade, but you can see that the sculpt work on that is just absolutely mesmerizing. Hasbro knocked it out of the park here with this particular version. If I had any criticisms with this, it's that I wish they would have sculpted this hand here to hold this better. For those of you who will recall, the original Build-A-Figure had a hammer which had a much larger handle, whereas with this one it is certainly a little skinnier, so he doesn't hold it the best unless you really push the thicker section in, and to me that doesn't look all that great whatsoever. If they would have resculpted it so that he could have maybe held it with a tighter grip here, I would have much preferred that. But whilst on the topic of the older version, let's bring it out here for a comparison. Now, don't get me wrong, I think that the older version is fantastic, and as far as inaccuracies go, it was very inaccurate to the movie, but it doesn't take anything away from the overall sculpt work, and for me, I will be keeping both of these figures as I love the looks of both of them. You can have this as an almost pre-Infinity War, pre-Endgame version of Cole Obsidian, and then of course when Thanos does want to rally up the Infinity Stones, he armors up for battle. But just taking a look there, you can see the head sculpts are identical. As mentioned previously, the upper torso does appear to be the same sculpt, this time just with the PVC layer over the top. As we take a look here at the back, you can see once again some fantastic detail as well as sculpt work going along here. The arms are the exact same sculpt, and as we take a look here At this forearm, you can see here that this section does have the additional component over the top, so that does lead me to believe that this here is indeed a direct reuse. And then, of course, the PVC section here for the skirt armor is a complete new sculpt, as so is the lower abdomen, and the legs are, of course, completely brand new. So overall, once again, one of the highlights out of the set, and was the main reason why I actually picked this up, as I love the original Obsidian, so to get him in a more movie-accurate deco was for sure a good enough reason to add him to the collection. The articulation is exactly the same as the previous version, so once again, I won't bore you all with that, but as far as sculpt work is concerned, it is astonishing. And so, some final thoughts. I believe this to be a great box set. For those of you who are a fan of Infinity War and Endgame, this has got to be one of the best box sets released so far. You get Thanos and, of course, the Black Order. I think that they look absolutely fantastic. Each of the figures have been enhanced and modified in order to match their on-screen appearances, and in some instances, they absolutely obliterate their previous counterparts, especially where Obsidian is concerned, and in some regards, even Proxima Midnight. I think that the changes made to her face certainly make her look a lot better than what we got on the original version, which, don't get me wrong, was a really nice looking figure. It, of course, just wasn't as accurate as some of the later figures, such as Ebony Moore. I do think that Ebony Moore has got a sufficient amount of changes, especially in regards to the colour scheme and, of course, the new hair attachment. Corvus Glaive, for me, has got to be the least appealing, as luckily I was able to obtain the original release, so I really am not getting much new here, and I do prefer the lighter colour scheme that we did get on the original version. I think that the darker wash and the jet black colour scheme for his costume, to me, doesn't look all that great, but the Thanos figure is really nice, especially for handling the mould for the first time. The interchangeable battle damage components, I think, are awesome, and I for sure believe we are going to see that battle damaged arm re-released in some form later down the line. The Obsidian, though, has got to be the standout out for the set. It took what was already a really nice builder figure, whilst inaccurate, and has amplified it to a 10. I think that he looks astounding. The sculpt work, as well as the attention to detail where his armor is concerned, is mind-blowing. So overall, if you are a Marvel Legends fan, a fan of the MCU, and you are looking for what is potentially the ideal Christmas gift, then I highly recommend that you pick this set up or ask for it for Christmas. I truly do believe that it is one of the best MCU box sets that at least I have picked up, and I'm pretty sure many of you will agree with me in saying that. I really hope that you enjoyed this review. Of course, it was a little different when compared to the content that I usually produce on the channel, and I hope that I did a sufficient job in showing these figures off in as best detail as I possibly could. I thank you all so much for watching, and until my next review, I'll see you then.